God, you got graphics and everything. You're like one of those really like you're like a real ambitious person I can see, and always failing. You're like people who have like these really ambitious, like you've got loads of amazing things in your presentation, and then but everything just starts falling apart because it's too complicated. It's I can see. I'm getting nervous just looking at the graphic moving. I can imagine all the megabytes trying to get up the tube.
Andy, how did you end up in Ireland?
I was deported. I was I was living in Kuwait because I'm a very Islamophobic, so I decided to go and live in Kuwait because I like to be uncomfortable. And unfortunately, I was in Saudi. I sound like one of these like traveling people here, like an asshole, just telling you about all these traveling things. But I was coming back from Oman, and all the visas were cancelled, so I couldn't get back into the country. So I was they were going to send me back to Oman, but I was like, send me to Ireland instead. So I'm in Ireland. So I'm like a refugee. I've just been in, know what it's like. I'm going to try and get across the channel back to England.
I mean, England seems not to be a problem apart from the quarantine restrictions, but Wales and Scotland, I mean, we are Wales.
Yeah.
And we have our own rules and our own sheep.
I think England has got, it's like 65 million people that we know who live there, but 55 million live in England. So if you live in people are always like, oh, things are much better in Scotland. It's just like no one lives there. It's kind of empty, apart from Inverness. If once you get above Glasgow and Edinburgh, like no one lives there apart from J.K. Rowling. She's got like a giant house, but it's I used to live in Inverness. It's like I think it's one of the best places to live in the UK. Can you say the UK anymore? I can't remember now. But anyway, the
Isle of there's no more trees left.
Yeah, the ununited kingdom. Scotland's a really nice place to live. But it's a bit weird. We're talking about Ireland, how Ireland, like it's either raining or there's lots of midges, so you can't really win. Where Scotland, you've got like a few weeks where if it's not raining, there's no midges, so it's good kind of weather but there's not much. There's a lot of climbing, but the weather's always bad. That's why Dave McLeod is so good, because he just spends his whole time in his shed, just hanging off bits of wood. Looking out the window, waiting for the rain to stop. Where
shaping holes out of wood and just going like, "Oh, my garage is the best place on earth."
Yeah, I think because I always think Dave, you can tell he's constructed by his environment. Like he's kind of dour, isn't he? He's not like hey man, how you doing? Like, oh hey, he's like Tim Emmett or someone like that, who's like on drugs. Like, Dave McLeod is, he's just sitting there in a dark room just looking at a cheesecake, squeezing like a piece of rock to stump. Interesting. Climbing's like that, isn't it? It's just it's got so many interesting people. Well, not so much now. Most of the interesting people have stopped climbing, but there are some like strange characters, but not as many as there used to be. They all died, all the strange ones.
Yeah, it seems to be that they are a dying breed, the interesting characters, and it's more important to kind of like post good pictures on Instagram.
Yeah, you need to have a girlfriend, or it doesn't really work if you're a woman climber, but you need to have these like Instagram photographs where you're basically in a camper van and your girlfriend's there and she's wearing a pair of like small like underwear, and she's pointing at like an Alsatian that's jumping in a puddle. And it's just this photograph where people are like, that's what I want to be. I want to have like a beautiful girlfriend and a camper van
and a dog,
a husky
and a small dog,
living in Twalmy Meadows. But really, they're sat like at work, in a sewage factory or something. And but the woman is like, it's like Bin Laden. All those terrorists were all hired, to look like a terrorist, kingpin. But they're all just hired for the day. So you just hire all these things. Like, I'll just hire the van. I'll hire this, jet. I'll get Ben Moon. I'll borrow his campus board. I'll just hang off it, with a cigar or something with my homies, and you just create this illusion of what life's really like. But it's not like that. It's like everybody else's life, but it's probably worse because you just spend the whole time thinking about making your life like, not what it is. So
Yeah, but I mean, this is the magical mixture. I mean, you just said it right. You need a big van, like a funky dog, and a hot chick, and then
yeah.
your Instagram account is going to be flooding because everybody's going to look at the dog, the van, and possibly your girlfriend.
Well, if you're a woman climber, you need to have a hot guy who's also a photographer.
I know a few of them.
Like he's kind of good looking. He could be a model, but he's actually talented and he's creative, and he's not really interested in, social media. But that's all he does. He just does social media, but hair social media, and that's why a really good climbers always have really good photographers. Like if you're a really good climber and no one's taking any photographs of you, you might as well not be alive.
You might have even climbed the route. I mean, this is
yeah, like no one cares. Like unless I can see a photograph staged photograph, I don't believe you did it. So yes, you need to find a good photographer. Like go climbing with someone who takes really good photographs. Like, but don't go climb with someone if you look on their Instagram and it's just lots of selfies. That's never good. And where do you live now? Where's this like hovel you're living in?
This hovel I'm living in is like Frankenjura in northeast Bavaria. Yeah.
Do you ever really like on your foot? Do you know where you've got your heel bone? No, your ankle bone. Like often Frankenjura climbers, they often have like a really enlarged muscle. The muscle just ahead in front of your ankle bone. Have you ever noticed that?
Why? Why?
Is it from standing in like wearing like ninjas, Kremlin ninjas, like wearing really soft boots in those pockets? It gives people like really strong feet.
It's
maybe.
really, I usually wear really comfortable shoes. Sometimes today I was actually climbing barefoot. I don't have that lump because I seem to wear slippers, flip-flops, in summertime, and usually Crocs is so I just know I don't have it. But I agree. People do seem to have aggressive downturn shoes because it's hardcore climbing and. It's not to be fooled with, a lot of people get ass kicking.
Yeah. Have you ever? Do you think it's a good look wearing flip flops?
It depends which environment you move your body in. I mean, if it's steep limestone crags in Croatia on the coast, and you get good pictures, knee bother. Yeah. Especially when a local mountain rescue team tells people to wear boots for hiking. And I just bash around. Everybody's like, oh, there's snakes everywhere. And I'm like, well, I don't care.
They're not good in railway stations, I think.
Oh, yeah.
When it's wet.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I usually, when I go to the city and I do use the train, which it doesn't happen a lot, I do not wear slippers.
Yeah. Nothing worse than falling down a flight of stairs. I reckon that's never a good look.
No, and if they're sweaty, and you end up having the goo in between your feet and the plastic or the leather, it ends up being just ice skating. Yeah. It's not good at all.
No. I remember, there's a weird thing where sometimes you're walking with flip-flops on and they're very old and suddenly like the toe part pulls out.
Oh, fuck, it pops out.
For a second you can't remember how to walk. Because the things it must be like when you have having a stroke or something, like the flip flops, just like, I can't remember how do these work again. So, yeah, I kind of miss flip flops because it's just easy, isn't it? Just get out of bed, put your flip flops on.
Yeah, I mean it's a good way forward, to be honest. I mean, thumbs up for whoever kind of developed this kind of footwear. I mean, I totally agree. The plastic ones that do seem to pop out, but I have sometimes leather and natural fibers.
Bavarian ones.
Yes.
I once climbed El Cap with some guy. He was a Bavarian, and I was like climbing off the B lane. I had some shorts on, and he was like, in Bavaria, you would be amazing. Like you have such amazing your calves are amazing. Like people have like surgery to have calves like that in Bavaria. Yeah.
For the socks, you get these knitted socks. And they're like, I mean, they're actually just made for the calf, man. They're like made for the calf, just to kind of hide your superhero warrior power, Because if you pull out the calf on one leg and it's like triple the size of your forearm or your biceps, you get respect straight away.
You have like inserts, like getting like a butt implants, but like just for your calf. So
you do get them. I mean, sometimes it's just okay to go natural because people will recognize the fact if you put some fucking fake shit in. They're really, really on it.
Like a 6-pack for your calves. So speaking of which, I met Thomas Huber recently in Krakow, in Poland.
For the film festival, yeah.
Film festival.
Norbert was there as well. Norbert Sandner was there as well, and Ben.
Yeah, I got coronavirus as well. But that's another story. But we walking along trying to get somewhere with Thomas.
Yeah.
And suddenly we went through this bit and there was a bit of sun and the sun was shining and Thomas was like, I must stop here. I must have a beer. And he just like,
What?
he just sees this like cafeteria and this cafe and just goes to it and sits down and goes, we must stop. We must have a beer now.
Yeah, it's like liquid amber. It's like fuel. It's
rocket
fuel.
It was amazing. Like, he just like flicked into like, it was, I thought I had more respect for him for that than any kind of climbing.
Andy, I'm exactly the same. But 3 minutes ago, I was thinking about I need to go to the fridge to get another beer. So give me a second. It's the truth. You can entertain the people and tell people.
I'll keep talking.
Yes, keep talking.
Yeah. So when I was in Krakow, there was a famous photographer who was there, and he was. My mind's gone blank. He was telling us about meeting Johnny Cash, and it was like the whole room was like totally silent, and he was just telling the story about meeting Johnny Cash. And then Ben Moon walked in, and everyone was like, "Oh, hi Ben," and no, keep going about Johnny Cash. So it made me kind of realize how boring climbing is that when people are talking about handholds and pockets, and then someone starts talking about meeting Johnny Cash, that's kind of the real deal. So
Johnny,
what a man,
what a fucking legend, man.
Yeah.
He's one of them.
It's getting dark here now.
Talking about walking the line, my friend.
Yeah.
You are one of those strange individualistic people who seem to go on crazy trips nobody has ever dared to. Or maybe people just didn't think outside of the box. I mean, this, I reckon, this is just an assumption, didn't happen because of your intake of heavy drugs when you were younger, but based on the basis that you were growing up with climbing from the year of 5 in a sort of very interesting environment. Hull.
Very, very flat, yeah. Like often, I think, like I was saying about Dave McLeod, you're like a construct of your environment. I always think that where I grew up, it was very flat, but I lived in a block of flats, lived in like a tower block, and there was no mountains or anything. This is before climbing walls and everything else, and it creates like they'll call like the misery masonettes. These blocks of flats were prefabricated and they were very damp and a bit kind of grim. And I think a lot of the climbing I've done in the rest of my life is very similar to that kind of kind of miserable. Like, I've never been interested in going anywhere beautiful, or like I just don't really see it. I've got like beauty blindness. Like I was climbing in Namibia, and it was like my wife was like, "Oh my god, this is the most amazing view in the world," and I was just like, "I just can't see it. I can't see what you're pointing at." So but if it was raining and snowing, I'd be like, "Oh, this is great. This is this is perfect." So yeah,
it's a really interesting fact, because I mean, I always seem to be drawn into, even with sport climbing, the Frankenjahr, I seem to be drawn into the dirty, scrubby, overgrown kind of routes which have less bolts and just seem to be away from everybody else, and this is the kind of style I just kind of like flourish. And it's really fucked up because, I mean, even I've had an injury a few years ago, like a spinal injury, and I ended up just kind of like climbing again afterwards, just climbing like dirty ruts, for whatever reason, because I just like gardening. Like, I like vertical gardening.
Yeah, you want to have another accident?
Yeah, well, I was pulling out yesterday a piece of rock, which was a fairly good sized, kind of helmet sized flake, and it looked suspicious anyways. The whole time I was holding on to it, but all of a sudden, when I really pulled hard and tried to go for the next move, I had this fucking flake in my hand, and it was just like, I popped out, and my hand just went like nipple squeeze, just total like. And I held on to it, and everybody was, oh, nobody held it on. I'm having this fucking rock in my hand, swinging out. And then I'm like, okay, good, it's okay. And I just threw the thing like 3 meters away. And yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I'm quite safety aware, but when I find something which I really like, I go through misery to kind of finish it.
Yeah.
And it usually works.
How did he hurt your back? How did he hurt your spine?
Oh, it was really interesting. We were actually on an excursion from university. I was studying at that time, and we went to this psychosomatic kind of playground where a circus clown, actually, very interesting, a circus clown, developed like a therapy for kids, and to kind of hang out with kids and make them aware of trust and all those things. And they still have the guy, Johnny Kippard, his name is. He died, and the institute is still there. So we went for a little play in this playground. It's a sport gym. So and there was one game on a big trampoline for gymnasts, and it was called barking or biting dogs. So there was a gymnastic ball on it, and you were supposed to jump around with 2 people on the thing. And we were jumping around, and if the dog bites you, you have to go to hospital. So my mate and me were jumping on it. And I realized my mate was absolutely loopy, like he was out of control. So I was like, "Fuck this! I'm gonna go jump into the fucking pool with all the cushions in and all the pillows." And I was submerged, and my buddy decided also to jump in. And I was actually just submerged, just erecting myself, and then
oh no,
he jumped from like 3 meters onto my fucking head, and my head just went totally around.
God.
Yeah, broke my spine, man. Being one of those people, we started actually. How do you get I mean, most of the time you go on troll wall, or you go like to Yosemite and you do big wall solo stuff, or technical climbing. How do you get your fucking nutcases with you? How do you get? I mean, this is something I really want to know, because for me as a climber, also sometimes indulging in mad ideas. How do you get the people? How do you get them?
Well, I think like when I climbed the troll wall, like I tried to solo it in the summertime. And then I got like within sort of 35 meters of the top, and I couldn't do the last 35 meters. It took me like 10 days to get to the last 35 meters, but I just couldn't find a belay. So I ended up wrapping all the way down. And then I came over to Norway to do a slideshow. Yeah. And I met this guy, Tormod Grandheim, who was the first guy to ever ski down Everest. And he was like a real tough guy. And I was like, hey, do you want to go and climb the troll wall in the wintertime? He was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And then I was at the BAM Film Festival, and I saw this film, Crossing the Ice, with this guy, Alexander Gamma, this Norwegian, who skied to and from the South Pole. So I was like, oh, that's cool. He's a cool guy. So I just emailed him and said like, hey, Alex, do you want to go and climb the troll wall in the winter? He was like, hey, that'd be so cool. So we kind of turned up, not having climbed with either of these people, don't even know them. And we went on the troll wall for like 14 days. And it was only on about the 7th, like I was leading everything. And on like the 8th day, in the morning, I was like, oh, Alex, today you can do some leading. So I give him all the gear, and he started like climbing up this pitch. And I said about back cleaning, like we haven't got enough gear. You have to back clean as you're climbing up. So I kind of went in the portal edge on a little sleep. And when I came out, it was probably like 15 meters up. We didn't have any gear in at all. It was just on like a one piece of gear. And I'm like, Alex, what are you doing? You've not got any gear in. He's like, oh, that's what I explained it. I'm so scared. And so he managed to get some gear in.
Why didn't he take the gear out from the bottom?
He just like back cleaning everything the whole way. So I lowered him down, and then he said like, to be honest, I've never climbed outdoors before. Like he'd only ever climbed in a climbing wall. So there he was, like on the troll wall in the winter.
You fucking kidding me?
Yeah, and then Tormod was the same. Like neither of them really had ever done anything like that before. So you're up there in, pretty as extreme as it's going to get, probably, I would have thought, for looseness and danger with these two crazy Norwegians. But it's often to do with people who are qualified to go. They won't want to go. Like often the best things in life are done by people who don't know any better. They're like good enough to do it, but they don't know enough to not do it.
Yeah.
If I'd said to you, I said to a normal person, do you want to kayak across the Baltic? If someone didn't know anything about kayaking or the Baltic, they'd be like, oh, it doesn't look very far on the map. Yeah, I'll do that. But if someone's been on the Baltic, they might like, oh god, the sea's can get quite rough out there, and I don't want to do that.
All those fucking danger signs popping up in your mind. Bam, bam,
yeah,
bam,
all the
bam.
reasons not to do it. Well, so some people, if you completely have no experience whatsoever, you probably say, no, I can't do it. Well, some people like I skied across Greenland. I'd never been skiing before. Like I'd never even clipped my boots onto a pair of skis until I got off the helicopter, and I didn't tell anybody. So after like 500 kilometers, when I got to the other side, I was like pretty good, and it's flat. Like it's not like I've got to do any, ski backwards or anything. So I think often people are always doing this like apprenticeship, like, oh yeah, I want to climb El Cap, and I'm like, I've got this like 10-year program. It's like, what the hell? I just go and do it. Like, try it, and if you don't do it, try it again, and you'll do it. Like, but don't spend 10 years like building up to it. It's by then in 10 years you won't want to do it. Maybe that's a goal, is to just run the time down, run the clock out. Like, oh, I had some kids. Yeah, my wife got pregnant. Can't do it now.
No,
I always hear that when people say, "Oh, I've got a ticket from my wife," or "I've got a pass from my wife." I'm like, you spineless fucker. Like, it's a terrible thing to say about somebody, that they're giving you a pass. So that's why I've been married twice, I guess.
Really interested about you as a character is that the question which comes into mind now is, what's wrong with you being normal, Andy? What would be wrong to be normal?
I had a phase where I had a bit of I had like a nervous breakdown. I went to Antarctica, and then I came back. I had a bit of a nervous breakdown, and I think it was the culmination of lots of things. And someone said, you need to go and see like a therapist. So I went to see this therapist for 3 times, and one time I was like, I think I'm really afraid of having like a normal life. And she was like, oh, that's a ridiculous thing to say. Like, no life is normal. And she was telling me all this kind of stuff. Like therapists, they're always trying to trick you. Like you'll say something like, oh, this person makes me feel like this. And like, no one makes you feel like that. So they're always like tricking you like this. So I said, well, I've got this book here that I wrote called Psychovertical. You can read it and tell me what you think next time I see you. So when I came the next time, she's like, oh my God, you have totally not had a normal life. Like I can totally see your problem. So yeah, I think maybe I think when I was probably between the age of like 10 and 19, I could see my whole life kind of mapped out in a way. Like I didn't go to university, I didn't have any qualifications, any skills. I was unemployed, on the dole, living in a squat. I basically had nothing really going for me. And I think a lot of my life has always been trying to fight against that, of being nothing in a way, if you know what I mean. Like it's a very common, like Leo Houlding is very similar. I don't know if you've met Leo Houlding, but he's kind of someone that people think is posh, or people think is something he isn't. But really, he is a manifestation of someone who doesn't want to be who they're meant to be, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. Like he's fighting against it. Whereas someone who grows up in Chamonix, and their father's a guide, and the mother's, like a famous photographer or whatever, like they just don't have that same kind of hunger to do this crazy, to risk everything, risk your life, whatever, just to not be normal. And it's kind of weird, to try and make a living. I kind of make a living as a writer, but I'm really dyslexic, like kind of off the scale. I've off the scale problems to do with lots of things. But yes, I end up doing the thing that I should, the least likely to do is the thing I try to, So it's a kind of weird. It's you don't want to be normal. I don't know what a verb is, and I don't know what all this kind of grammar kind of stuff. I don't understand any of it because I have no real formal education. But yeah, somehow you write books that people want to read. So it's kind of weird, really.
But are you maybe trying to surprise yourself?
I think you're always afraid that this is it. That this is there's a famous film in the UK. I think it was called Damage, where the main character goes, "What if you've already had the best moment in your life?" It's like it's such a depressing idea, and I think you're always thinking, "Can I get?" Because I have like long like fallow periods in my life where I don't do anything at all, don't go climbing, don't do anything. Yeah. I'll just sit and just write, or I'm not like a real climber. I'm almost like someone like a superhero, but in like a dystopian superhero where is this like fat guy, and he's just like who's that fat guy over there? And then he goes into this cellar and digs up this box. Inside it, there's like all his aid climbing gear or something, and you'll go off to Antarctica and you'll do something impressive, and then you just put it all back in the box and you bury it again. Where when you meet people, you meet like proper climbers, and that's all I met like Robert Jasper.
Yeah.
Robert Jasper, like all he's interested in is climbing.
Yeah,
He's got nothing to talk about climbing. I'm like, I'm not really that interested in climbing. So it's like I'm interested in climbing. I'm really interested in climbers, but I'm less interested in, because I think if you have an obsessive personality, climbing's very, very dangerous, because you can be drawn into it to such a degree that there's nothing else exists. And I don't want to be like a 60-year-old guy who's like, basically I invested my whole life in climbing and I don't have anything. I don't have any good relationships. I don't have any, I've just got loads of old boots and loads of old ropes that I can't use anymore. So it's like trying to get that balance between the obsessive side of climbing and all the other stuff, because, being creative and all that kind of, maybe you're that guy. You're like, shit, he's talking about me now. But you do meet people, don't you? It'd be really interesting to write a story about, someone who is like Fred Becky, people like that. Uh-huh. If you're going to do it, you've got to do it all the way. If you're like an 80-year-old guy who's climbing like 8C, you're going to have to die on a route. You're still living like when you were 19. You don't own anything. You're just going climbing every day. And it's not to say that's a bad thing if you can make it work.
No.
Because everybody else is. I remember once I ended up like I was kind of a bit homeless, and everything I owned fitted in about 5 blue barrels, and everything was climbing equipment. I was like, I was 40 years old. I didn't own any furniture. I didn't own any carpets or curtains, or I didn't own anything. I didn't own a house, whatever. And I had this photograph on Instagram. It was just all these barrels in my dad's shed. And I was like, is this all I'm worth, at 40 years old? And people were like, oh my God, you're so lucky. Like,
yes.
Like I've just got this house full of shit and blah, 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 blah. So it's when you're on the other side of the fence, you're always looking over going, oh God, that person's he's got these beautiful kids and he looks so happy. He's growing his melons or whatever. He's got his tomatoes in the greenhouse. And the other guy's looking over going like, oh, that guy's got none of this, all this luggage, all these kids who are stopping me from being what I want to be. And it's a very human thing, isn't it? To be kind of semi, but I guess this what's going on at the moment is quite good. It's made people, it's refocused, what is actually, having a mechanical keyboard isn't that important, or having a, going on holiday or doing all these things. It's kind of good, really. It's almost like going on a mountaineering trip, isn't it? Or going on going somewhere where you really feel like the rawness of what life is like really about, like where you can appreciate a slice of bread or a glass of water rather than wanting, everything, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. I mean, it's nothing I can add to that.
I've not made you go quiet now, have I? I've not been like, sometimes I have this thing where I realise that I often have like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
You have that in Germany.
No,
this thing where, where someone has like a split personality. And I think, I don't know if that's like a curse, is where sometimes you look back at conversations you had or things you did, and you're almost like, how did, who was that person? Like, you're almost embarrassed, or does that make any sense? Like, you're just, you'll go off on like some big rant or something, or start, and then you'll look back at it and go like, what was I talking about?
Who was me, and how many is there? Richard David Brecht.
And maybe that's the thing about when you, like, I probably make half my living writing, half my living standing on a stage. And I think a lot of it is when you're standing in front of an audience.
Yeah.
Is people think this is really that guy. So you have like your internal voice and your external voice, and you have to get the two of them to communicate with each other.
Yeah, fucking hell.
Where a lot of people can't do it because they're too afraid that the internal voice will say something that's people won't like, or they won't like, or so someone said an interesting thing about Donald Trump, why Donald Trump is so 50% of people love Donald Trump, 50% of people hate him. It's because he has no barrier between his inner voice and his outer voice. It's like an asshole on the inside and he's an asshole on the outside. But people actually quite like that, where a politician is often the voice. It's not a real person speaking. There's no interaction between the two of them. And I think if you can fake that, you're aware. In Yosemite, and I was standing at the bottom of the nose or something. And then Pete abseiled down, and just next to me, just came from nowhere, just next to me, and this guy was like, "Oh, hey man, are you Pete Whitaker?" And Pete was he just looked down at his feet, he was so embarrassed that someone had recognized him.
Oh no!
And I was thinking some people would be yeah, hi, but my wife met Hans Florine.
Yeah. And
she was on this ledge, and Hans Florine gets on this ledge, and she's like, "Oh, are you Hans Florine?" And he goes, "I try to be."
Like James Bond.
Yeah. So you need to have that. You need to have that kind of, you need those lines all tucked away. One of my favorite sayings I want to use is on the plane coming back from Alaska, and this guy next to me, he was watching these really old Japanese television programs, black and white, on his computer. And I was like, God, that's really weird. Why is he watching that? And I'm like, excuse me, what are you watching there? And he said, oh, I'm really into old 1960s Japanese TV. I'm like, oh really? And I'm like, what? If you don't ask me, what do you do for a living? He said, well, do you know Star Wars? I was like, yeah. I said nothing like that.
It's fucked up. That's really fucked up.
I've always been waiting to use that line with somebody, but no one ever asks me. I always get them mixed up. Excuse me, what do you do for a living? I try to be. The best Scottish adventure. I don't know. Cause I used to live in Inverness, so I had quite a lot of good adventures in Scotland. I once kayaked across Scotland with my kids, which was a nightmare, from Fort William across to Inverness. And they just really hated it the whole way, and kayaking down. And there was a bit where it was just loads of weird things. It's not super hardcore. But I said to my daughter, she was probably 10 or something. I was like, oh, I want you to, feel what it's like to be by yourself, in the kayak, in a canoe. So I want you to kayak down here a bit, by yourself. I'll just walk along. So she got in the canoe, and then it got really windy, and the canoe blew off. It started blowing off across Loch Ness. And I was so terrified, and somehow she managed to find her way back again. Shit. But climbing wise, everything you do in Scotland is an amazing adventure. I guess I did a lot of sea kayaking, so I kayaked around Cape Wrath, which is the furthest north where it is. Never reached Ready Week. Up at the top of Scotland.
Yeah.
And that was kind of. Sea kayaking, this we're talking about climbing.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. The question wasn't specified, so.
Well, sea kayaking, you can have really, if say we can never travel again, we're all locked in.
It's the way forward. I'm gonna fucking sea kayak to Wales and Ireland.
People did was it Hans Roma? He kayaked to the Caribbean from Portugal. He wanted to move to America. So this is before the Second World War. So it was. People used to do it. But you can have an amazing adventure. Instead of going over to Patagonia.
Oh yeah, man.
You can just go kayaking in Scotland or Sweden, or you can have these amazing adventures. It's a lot less. It's kind of good fun. But so yes, Scotland's really good for that kind of thing. And the climbing's amazing when the weather's good. It's amazing how small people's houses are when you go back to England. People love it, but it's so everything else. Everyone's living right on top of each other. That is, you don't realize it till you go. It's do you know when you have? I always remember my son. They told me that my son had some attention deficit syndrome or something, and they said that we didn't know because it was normalized. You didn't realize it because you'd grew up. This child growing up, you couldn't see it, but they could because they were professionals, and it always made me think about how things become. it's only when you go away and you come back that you can see something's not right. And I think England's like that. You go back and it's like, God, like everyone is like just living on top of each other. It's it's a weird thing. Like humans are amazing how they can just cope. They can just create these coping strategies. You're living in Bath and it's like full of graffiti everywhere, and you're like, oh, it's so vibrant, all the graffiti and all the rubbish.
You make it beautiful.
People can, no matter how bad things get, like you go to like Kenya and you go in like some real like shitty places, and everyone's like having a great old time. People are genuinely, they're struggling, but they're far more happy than, someone living in Chelsea probably. But people have amazing ability just to get on with it and just make do with, find a way of coping whatever's going on. Really, I guess this is a good example of what's going on at the moment. Like,
how do you cope then? How do you cope?
Apart from the heroin.
Yeah, I mean, apart from all these other things, the accusations, the allegations, and the heroin, how do you cope?
I never really think about the future. I think it's a working class thing. I think I always think that if you're born, like someone the other day said to me, oh, you want to read this book? It's called like Poverty Safari, about this guy and he goes to Glasgow and he like meets all these poor people. And I was like, I don't need to read a fucking book about growing up in poverty.
Don't tell me this shit, man. I fucking lived it.
Yeah, it's like Christ Almighty. But I just there's this I don't, maybe you're the same, but there's this working class thing where there's always something bad is about to happen.
Yeah.
Like you have no like safety net. Like if a bill comes, if your washing machine breaks or something happens, you've got no safety net. Like if VAT goes up by 2%, like everything's wiped out, and if you get made redundant, you just can't think how you could get another job because you're not going to go and move somewhere else. So it's I think you've always got this this terror of what's going to happen next. Where I think if you're middle class people don't have that so much. I think they're much more secure, and they're thinking about their children's education, and the children are just born and they're putting their name down for a nice school or nice. But I think working class people don't think like that, so that's why they're genuinely happier, because they're not like in Africa, people are literally making enough money for today. They're not putting down any down payments for an electric car or anything. So I think it's a curse and a gift. I think is to not think about the future. And I was thinking that when I was a kid, Star Trek was already old. It was already an old thing, and now people are getting excited about Star Trek. Like what is going on? It's like it's constructed by like an algorithm. We'll just find out what people want to watch, and we'll make another Star Wars film, another Doctor Who, another we'll do Asterix or something. They'll just keep reusing all this kind of stuff, but they're not. So it's not replacing anything, but it's probably worse. So maybe we haven't found a God religious kind of thing we can fill in. Like I should just kept going with religion, and just keep rehashing it, and maybe that's the way forward. Keep us all happy and stuff. Now we can't smoke. Now we're not allowed to smoke as well. I actually went on Facebook today because someone said these people were arguing about something I was interested in. And I went there and I saw these people who have, maybe 5 years ago, they would have been arguing about exactly the same thing, and they were still arguing about it. And I was like, Christ Almighty, like if you can't be arguing about something else, you just got to keep, just change the thing you're arguing about. If you're just arguing about the same thing, it's a little bit like, Brexit and all these things. Like people like, oh, we've argued about that. We couldn't come to any conclusions. Like we'll argue about something else now. Like we've moved on. It's so I think that's a bad sign. It's like someone arguing about the Vietnam War or something. About it's like it's like a long time ago. It's that was like 2020. We don't even talk about that those things now. They're all in the past. So give me something new.
We didn't want to talk about religion and politics. You kind of got into it again.
There was a thing. It was a guy.
Andy, this is your weak spot.
rambling. You know, it's it's quite good.
Oh, it's nice to have structure. I mean, obviously, we all need structure, and structure can be found in madness or oddity, or like different thought. Or I mean, the thing is, structure is quite important. This was one of the lessons I learned in my life, and patience and trust is another one. These are another two things. You know, you have to trust yourself, and you have to trust the world, and that things will pond out. And another thing,
people.
Oh yeah, big time. Bring up the healing. Brah, 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 bring up the healing, brah, brah. Talk to the people you love and tell them that you love them, because there might be not much time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree.
What's that Sunscreen song? Do you like that?
No.
Wear Sunscreen. Have you never heard that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, God, it's a classic. Baz Luhrmann, you know, who did all those films, he did a song called Wear Sunscreen. Look it up, Google it later on.
Yeah, definitely.
But all it is someone just talking about, you know, what you should do in your life, like some old guy talking about all these things. And there's a bit where he says, like, I used to often when I was driving along, I'd put it on so my kids would be in the car. So I always thought, like, subliminally, some of this might go into their heads, and there'd be it's got things, you know, like clean your teeth, you know, you'll miss them when they're gone, and be careful of your knees, and you know, stay in contact with your family, because you know the people who you know the best in the world, and all this kind of stuff. So it's really cool, but there's a bit, but I never used to know if it was going into my kids' heads, because like, oh God, oh, this is rubbish, turn this off, oh God, I hate this song. And then there's a bit where it says, do something that scares you every day.
Oh.
And then one day my daughter was like, Dad, I do something that scares me every day. And I was like, it went into your head, that song. So
yeah,
it's a highly recommended song.
No, definitely check it out. That's really cool. I mean,
it's probably a German version with David Hasselhoff is singing it, probably.
I've been looking for freedom. I mean, you really wanted to do a Stefan Kovac impression, because I mean, you know him, and you're quite good at it. I mean, can you kick something? Can you spit some spits out?
Well, I want to do this thing. Have you seen the film A Scream of Stone? The Werner Herzog film.
Oh, yes.
Stefan Kovac.
No, yeah. Well, no, I usually watch Werner Herzog films, all the good ones, but with Stefan, no.
Yeah, you need to watch that one. Anyway, I want to do like a performance of The Scream of Stone, and I want to play all the parts. I want to play Stefan Kovac. But in the film, there's a bit where Stefan Kovac is this amazing rock climber, like indoor rock climber, and he meets this old gnarly mountaineer. Like they have a climbing wall in the studio, in the television studio, and he's climbing up there, and the commentator's like, now he is lifting up onto this edge. If he holds this, he has done the route. And he's like, and the audience like, oh, and he's like, oh, and he's like hanging by one arm and just like a pull up, and he's like, yay, and he lowers down, everyone's like clapping, and he comes and sits down on the settee with the TV presenter, and there's this old like gnarly mountaineer there, and he goes like, so tell me, do you think he could climb the Serra Torre? And the guy's like, he is too thin. He is a sport climber. He could never climb the Serra Torre. And Stefan Kovac goes, all I need is 1 centimeter, and I could climb anything. Just like that. And he's like, I don't think you can. And the guy is like, I will see you there. Yes. And then they walk off. And then the next scene there is in Serra Torre. It's a classic. It's a classic film.
Fucking hell, man, that's amazing.
But I think YouTube, people don't read books anymore. I think YouTube's the way forward. Just
yeah, I mean, I'm good. I got it all sorted out now.
We're going to realize at the end of this that nothing was recorded. It'll all be it went to the ether.
I am nervous already, my friend. Absolutely. Well, Andy, I mean, for me right now, it seems like my beer's empty. I've been smoking way too much, and I've had a really good talk to you. Please stay on. Just for a little kind of reflection, I'll take you out, I'll kick an intro. Is there anything you want to add? Because I'm quite a nice guy, so...
No, it's been great talking at you.
Well, there you go. That's Schnitzel Live once more with the mad one and only Andy Kirkpatrick tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and goodbye.